Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Reed never thought his marriage would end this way. Every morning for 14 years, the first thing he saw when he woke up was Elise's sleeping side, her curly brown hair strewn across the white pillowcase, her breathing steady and quiet. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but in Reed's opinion, it was solid enough to weather the storms of life. At least, that's what he thought. That Thursday morning, Reed woke up with the other side of the bed empty. The aroma of coffee and Elise's voice whispering on the phone came from the kitchen. He stretched and looked at the alarm clock on his nightstand, 6:30, a full hour earlier than his usual wake-up time. "I think we need to have a long talk," Reed heard Elise say on the other end of the line, a determination in her voice that he rarely heard. He won't tolerate this forever. Reed quietly got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. It's not like him to eavesdrop on his wife's phone calls. But Elise's behavior has become increasingly strange in recent weeks. Frequent overtime sessions, cryptic text messages, and an elusive sense of detachment. "Just this weekend, I'll figure it out," Elise continued, her voice dropping even lower. "I know, I miss you too." When Reed heard those last words, he felt a wave of nausea and stomach cramps. He'd suspected it for months, but hearing those mere words, those suspicions suddenly became tangible evidence. Reed took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heartbeat, then pretended to have just woken up and walked into the kitchen. "Good morning," he said, his voice deliberately calm. Elise almost jumped, the phone almost slipping out of her hand. "Reed, you're scaring me." She quickly hung up the phone and placed it on the counter, a forced smile on her face. "I thought you were going to be up late." Reed shrugged and walked toward the coffee machine, heard a noise and got up. "Who are you talking to on the phone?" "Oh, just work stuff," Elise replied, her eyes drifting away. "Morgan has some papers he needs me to look at earlier today." Morgan is Elise's boss at the construction company, a woman Reed has only met a few times at company parties. The lie came so easily, so naturally, that Reed couldn't help but wonder if this wasn't the first time. "What's the plan for today?" Reed asked, pouring a cup of coffee and carefully watching Elise's expression. "As usual," she replied, looking down at her phone. "Might be back late. We're meeting a deadline for a project." "Another lie." Reed nodded, pretending to accept the explanation. He decided today was the day to get to the bottom of it. "I'm working late today, too," he said, and this time it was his turn to lie. "It could be very late." Elise looked up, and a flash of an emotion Reed couldn't identify flashed in her eyes. Was it relief or fear of being found out? "Okay, don't get too tired." Their conversation was like a carefully choreographed dance, with both sides carefully avoiding the truth. Reed is an electrical engineer and has worked for a local power company for 15 years. His salary wasn't great, but it was enough for them to live comfortably. They live in a small detached house with a small garden and a garage in a suburb of Boston. They didn't have children, not because they didn't want them, but because they never got pregnant. Over the years, this fact became a hidden pain between them, but they learned to live with it. Elise is an architectural designer working for a well-known architectural firm. She is smart, ambitious, and passionate about her career. Reed has always been proud of her accomplishments, even if it means she often works late. Or at least, he used to think she was working. Reed didn't go to work that morning. He sent a message to his boss saying he was feeling sick and needed a day off. It's not a complete lie. He did feel nauseous, but not from physical discomfort, but from spiritual pain. He waits until Elise leaves the house, then begins his investigation. He wasn't one for invading people's privacy, but he needed to know the truth. Their computers are shared, and Elise's email is still logged on in her browser. He clicked on his inbox and started browsing. Most of the emails were work-related until he came across one called Weekend Programs, addressed to Dominic G. Reed had never heard of it. He clicked it open and read it. "Dear Elise, looking forward to seeing you this weekend. I've booked 2 rooms just in case, but I'm hoping we'll only need 1. I can't wait to see you. Love you, Dom." This email was sent last week. Reed scrolled down and saw more similar emails, some even containing more intimate content. The communication between him and this Dom lasted at least 3 months. Reed felt a wave of vertigo and leaned back in his chair, taking deep breaths to steady himself. He thought of their 14 years of marriage, of all he had done for Elise, of the dreams and plans they had shared. And now it was all tainted by this moment of betrayal. Feelings of anger, pain, and humiliation were intertwined, but Reed didn't want to cry, didn't want to break down. Instead, he felt a strange calm descend upon him. He needed more evidence. He needed a plan. Reed went through Elise's other emails and files and found a train ticket between Boston and New York, dated for tomorrow Friday. It looks like she plans to leave on Friday and return on Sunday. This fits in with what she calls overtime hours. Next, he checked their credit card records. Several purchases at upscale restaurants and hotels over the past few months have occurred on nights when Elise claims to be working late. Reed never noticed this because Elise handled their finances. It's all too clear. His wife is cheating on him and has been for months. Reed closes his computer and walks to the window, looking out over their garden. The fall sunlight shining on the fallen leaves creates a calm picture that contrasts sharply with the storm inside him. He needs a plan, one that will not only end the marriage, but make Elise pay for her betrayal. Reed started thinking. From what he'd learned, Elise planned to go to New York tomorrow to meet with this Dominic. It gave him the perfect opportunity. He picked up his cell phone and dialed his best friend Marcus. Marcus is a private investigator and they met in college. "Hey man," Reed said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Are you free? I need some professional help." An hour later, Marcus was sitting in Reed's living room with a cup of coffee in front of him. He was a tall black man with keen eyes and a calm aura. "So, you're sure Elise cheated on you?" Marcus asked, concern in his voice. Reed nodded and told Marcus everything he had found out. "I need more evidence," Reed said. "Not just for the divorce proceedings, but for—" He paused for a moment, searching for the right words. "For your own mental health," Marcus picked up. "I understand. Being betrayed is a horrible feeling, and I've seen it too many times at work. Can you help me?" Marcus ponders for a moment, then nods. "It's my job. I'll follow Elise, see what she's doing in New York with this Dominic." "But Reed, are you sure this is what you want? Some things, once seen, cannot be forgotten." Reed's eyes became determined. "I need to know the truth, the whole truth. Only then can I make my next decision." Marcus agreed. He'll follow Elise to New York tomorrow, record her every move, and report back to Reed. When Reed sends Marcus away, he sits in the empty house and contemplates his next move. Divorce was inevitable, but divorce alone wasn't enough to quell the anger within him. Not only did Elise betray him, she destroyed their marriage with lies and deceit. She needs to pay for this. Reed began researching marital property law and divorce procedures. As a Massachusetts resident, he understands that in a fault-based divorce, the court may consider how one party's misconduct affects the division of property. His and Elise's house is joint property, as is their savings account. If he can prove Elise's affair, he may get a bigger share of the property division. But that's not enough. Reed wanted not only a financial victory, but emotional justice as well. He wanted Elise to realize the wrong she'd done, to feel the pain he'd felt. That night, Elise got home an hour later than usual. She entered the house with a strange sort of excitement, but her expression quickly changed to surprise when she saw Reed sitting at the kitchen table waiting for her. "I thought you'd be late," she said, setting her bag down and avoiding his gaze. "Job's ahead of schedule," Reed replied, watching her every move. "How are you today?" "Busy," Elise sighed, opening the fridge and pulling out a bottle of water. "I'm exhausted." "Yeah, overtime's exhausting," Reed said, a hint of sarcasm in his voice that Elise didn't seem to notice. "I might need to go to New York tomorrow," Elise said suddenly, still with her back to him. "There's an urgent project at the company that needs to be taken care of, and I may have to be there all weekend." Reed felt a surge of anger, but he controlled himself. "Is that right? What project?" Elise turned around, her eyes drifting. A new office building was designed, and the client was in a hurry. "Morgan wants me to go over there and take care of it myself." Another lie, piled on top of an already shaky tower of lies. "Sounds important," Reed commented. "I hope everything goes well." Elise nodded, seemingly relieved. "I'll leave first thing in the morning. Do you need a ride to the station?" "No, I'll take a cab. Don't want to bother you." "Of course I don't want to," Reed thought to himself, because she didn't want him to see who was waiting for her at the station. Dinner was a silent ritual, with both men lost in their own thoughts. Elise kept checking her cell phone, smiling slightly each time she received a message. Reed pretended not to notice, but his heart was bleeding. At night, As they lay in the same bed, but with what felt like an ocean between them, Reed stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that would happen tomorrow. Does he not love Elise anymore? He's not sure. But what he was sure of was that he would never be fooled by her again. The next morning, Elise woke up early and packed a small suitcase. She was dressed even more exquisitely than she usually was for work. A dark blue dress with her favorite pearl earrings, gifts from Reed. "I'm leaving," she said as she stood in the bedroom doorway, where Reed had just woken up. "See you Sunday night." Reed nodded and stretched. "Have fun and don't get too tired." Elise hesitates as if to say something, but ultimately just turns away. Reed heard the front door close, then the sound of a cab pulling away. He immediately picked up his cell phone and sent Marcus a message. "She's off." Marcus replied, "I'll keep up with her. Stay in touch." Reed is up and ready to execute his plan. First, he needs to preserve the evidence. Using some basic techniques Marcus had taught him, he backed up Elise's email and their credit card records to an encrypted hard drive. He then contacted an attorney, Dana Phillips, an attorney Marcus recommended who specialized in high-conflict divorce cases. Dana was able to meet him that afternoon, which was just what Reed had planned. Before that, he had one more important thing to do. Reed drives to the construction company where Elise works. He knew it was Friday and most of the staff would be in the office. He needed to confirm one thing. At the front desk of the company, Reed smiled and said, "I'm here to see Morgan Williams. I'm Elise Connor's husband." The receptionist responded kindly, "Let me see if she's available." She dialed the intercom. "Morgan, Elise Connor's husband is here to see you." A few moments later, a tall woman stepped out of the elevator and approached Reed. "Reed," she held out her hand. "It's good to see you. Is something wrong?" "Elise isn't in the office today." Reed took her hand, his mind already confirming his suspicions. "Yes, I know. Actually, I'm here to confirm something. Elise told me she needs to go to New York this weekend for an urgent project." Morgan's expression became confused. "New York? There's no such thing. We don't have any New York projects, much less plans to ask Elise to go there." Reed feigned surprise. "Really? That's so weird. She told me last night that you sent her to New York on an urgent project." Morgan shook his head and frowned. "I don't know why she would say that. As a matter of fact, she took today and next Monday off yesterday, saying she had a family matter to attend to." "Family matters," Reed repeated, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "Okay, this has to be some kind of misunderstanding. Thanks for your time, Morgan." Morgan looks worried. "Is everything okay, Reed?" Reed forced a smile. "It's gonna be okay. Thanks again." After leaving the construction company, Reed went straight to Dana Phillips' law office. He already had a clear plan in mind. Dana is a veteran attorney nearing her 50s, and her office is decorated in a simple yet professional manner. Reed sat across from her and went into detail about his situation and the evidence he found. "First of all, I'm sorry you're going through this," Dana said, sympathy in her voice. "Marital betrayal is an extremely painful experience. But from a legal standpoint, you've taken the right steps to gather evidence." "I want to file for divorce as soon as possible," Reed said. "And I want her to pay for her behavior." Dana nodded and began to explain the divorce laws in Massachusetts. "In Massachusetts, we have two types of divorce, fault and no fault. In your case, you have the option of filing for a fault-based divorce based on Elise's affair. This could affect property division and alimony decisions." "I want the house," Reed said. "It was built on land left to me by my parents, although we bought the house together after we got married. It's possible, especially if you can prove an extramarital affair. Marcus' findings will be very important." Next, Dana explained the divorce process in detail, including file submissions, the service process, and a possible timeline. The whole process could take months, if not longer, depending on whether Elise objects. "One more thing," Reed said. "I want to freeze our joint account. I don't want her spending our joint funds on this process." Dana agreed that this was a wise precaution and helped Reed draft the necessary paperwork. When Reed left the law office, it was 4 in the afternoon. His cell phone rang. It was Marcus. "Reed, I followed her to New York. She met up with a man in Penn Station, blonde, about 6 feet tall, looked like he was in his 30s. They hugged and kissed, then headed together to a hotel near Times Square. I took pictures and video." Reed's heart sank, and even though he already knew the truth, hearing it confirmed still sent a wave of pain through him. "Where are they now?" Still at the hotel. I will continue to monitor and record their movements. Thank you, Marcus. I owe you one. You're welcome, man. That's what friends are for. After hanging up the phone, Reed returns home and begins to execute the next step in his plan. He turned on his computer, logged into their joint bank account, and transferred half of the funds to his newly opened personal account. He then contacted their credit card company to report that his card was missing and requested that the account be frozen and a new card issued. Once these steps were completed, Reed began packing up Elise's personal belongings. He wasn't throwing her things out, but organizing them in preparation for the upcoming separation. Clothes, shoes, jewelry, books, everything that belonged to Elise was carefully placed in the box. When he tidies up to her dresser, Reed finds a small box containing the rings they exchanged on their wedding day. Elise claims she doesn't wear her wedding ring at work because it gets in the way of her drafting. Now Reed realizes that this is just another excuse for her to hide the affair. In the evening, Reed gets another call from Marcus. They had just returned to the hotel from an upscale restaurant. I heard snippets of conversation. From what I've heard, this Dominic is a client Elise met on a business trip to New York a month ago. He seems to be very wealthy and owns his own real estate company. Does he know Elise is married? Reed asked. From their conversation, yes, he knows. But he didn't seem too concerned about that. In fact, he told Elise he wanted her to fix that problem as soon as possible so they could be officially together. That question. Reed is just a problem in Dominic's eyes, an obstacle to be solved. Anger burned in Reed's chest, but he kept his cool. Keep tracking them, Reed said. I want to know what their plans are for tomorrow. No problem. But Reed, are you ready to hear more details? It can be painful. Reed took a deep breath. I need to know everything, no matter how painful. Reed barely slept that night. He lay in bed, thinking back on his 14 years of marriage to Elise. Their first date at a small cafe, their engagement on the banks of the Charles River, their wedding, simple and full of love. Those memories are now tainted by Elise's betrayal. The next morning, Reed gets up and continues his preparations. He contacted several moving companies to get quotes. He checks out the rental listings and considers his options for a place to live after the divorce. He even contacted their family doctor and canceled his and Elise's annual checkup appointment for the following week. Just as he was going through the motions, Marcus called again. They planned to sightsee in town today and then take the train back to Boston at noon tomorrow. From what I heard, Elise was planning on telling you about Dominic when she got home. She said she couldn't live like this anymore and wanted to make a change. Reed's hand is clutching his cell phone. What's she gonna do? Tell me straight out she's leaving me. It looks that way. Dominic proposes that she move to a hotel until the divorce proceedings are finalized. He said he would pay for everything. That's very generous, Reed said sarcastically. Anything else I should know? They discussed plans to move to New York. It looks like Dominic wants Elise to quit her job in Boston and move to New York to live with him. He mentioned that he could find a position for her in his company. So that's Elise's plan, to ditch 14 years of marriage and the career she's built in Boston for a man she's known for less than a month. Reed felt a wave of nausea. Thanks for the info, Marcus. Keep following them, but keep your distance. I don't want Elise to find you. Understood. After hanging up the phone, Reed begins to prepare for his final step. Elise plans to be back in Boston by noon tomorrow and will probably be home by afternoon or evening. He needed to be ready for that moment. Reed contacted Dana again to update the situation and ask some detailed questions. He then began to prepare a detailed financial report listing all their assets, liabilities, and expenses. This will come in handy during divorce negotiations. In the evening, Reed gets one last call from Marcus. They return to Boston on the 12:30 p.m. train tomorrow. From what I understand, Elise plans to come straight home to you. Dominic will be waiting for her at a hotel in Boston. Got it, Reed said. Thank you for everything, Marcus. You're welcome. Do you still need me to keep tracking them tomorrow? Reed thought for a moment. No need for that. I'll take care of what comes next. Sunday morning, Reed woke up early to begin final preparations. He'd organized the house, put Elise's suitcase in the foyer, prepared the divorce papers, and even had a bottle of wine and 2 glasses ready. If it's going to end, let it end with dignity. Afternoon, Reed sat in the living room, waiting for Elise's return. His heart raced, but his resolve did not waver. He knew what to say and do next. Around 3 p.m., He heard the sound of a key being inserted into the lock hole. Elise walks through the door, looking both tired and nervous. When she saw the suitcase, she stopped in her tracks and her face turned pale. "Reed?" she cried out, uncertainty in her voice. "Are you home?" Reed walked out of the living room and looked at her with an expressionless face. "Welcome home, Elise. Did you have a good trip?" Elise's eyes darted between Reed and the suitcase. "What does that mean?" she asked, pointing to the suitcase. "I think you've packed your bags," Reed said calmly. "Didn't you say you were going on a trip with another man?" Elise's face turned even whiter. "Reed, I can explain." "No need to explain," Reed interrupted her. "I know all about it. About Dominic, about your weekend in New York, about your plans. You followed me." Elise's voice became shrill. "I don't need to follow you," Reed lied. "Your lies are so obvious. And you forgot to log out of your email account." Elise's shoulders slumped and she leaned against the wall, seemingly losing her strength to stand. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," Reed replied, his voice cool and firm. 14 years of marriage, Elise. 14 years. And you chose to end it that way. "I'm not happy, Reed." Elise looked up with tears in her eyes. "We haven't been really happy in a long time. So your solution is to lie to me and betray me instead of just telling me like an adult that you're not satisfied?" "I didn't know what to tell you," Elise argued. "I don't want to hurt you." Reed laughed bitterly. "It's a little late for that, isn't it?" Silence spread between them, thick and suffocating. "So this is the end?" Elise finally asked. "Yeah, that's the end of it," Reed replied. "I have contacted an attorney and started the divorce process. All your stuff is in these boxes. I'm sure Dominic will be happy to make room for you at his hotel." Elise's eyes widened. "How do you know?" "I know more than you think," Reed interrupted her. "Now, I'd like to ask you to leave." "This is my home," Elise said, suddenly becoming angry. "You can't just kick me out. This house was built on my parents' land. If you remember," Reed replied. "Also, I think a judge would be less than kind to a person having an affair in terms of property division, especially if the person plans to leave everything behind and move to another city with her new lover." Elise's face turned pale. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already did," Reed replied. "Your choice, your consequences." Elise's eyes flashed with fear, then anger. "Okay," she said finally. "If that's what you want." "That's not what I want," Reed said calmly. "It's your choice." Elise is silent for a moment, then walks over to the suitcases and grabs a couple of them. "I'll send for the rest," she said, frustration in her voice. "Suit yourself," Reed replied. "But please hurry. I want to end this as soon as possible." As Elise shuffled toward the door, she stopped and turned to Reed. "I loved you once," she said, with a hint of remorse in her voice. "I loved you once too," Reed replied. "But that doesn't matter anymore, does it?" Elise didn't answer, just turned and walked out the door. As the door closed, Reed felt a strange sense of relief. The pain was still there, the wounds of betrayal were still bloody, but he had at least taken back some control. He poured a glass of red wine and sat on the couch in the living room, looking out the window at the sunset. It's not the way he imagined his marriage ending, but at least he kept his dignity and didn't let Elise take control of the narrative. His cell phone rang, a text from Marcus. "Is everything okay?" Reed replied, "She's gone. Everything went according to plan. Thank you." Marcus replied, "At your service, brother. Call me if you need company." Reed put down his cell phone and took another sip of his drink. This was just the beginning, he knew. The divorce proceedings will be an uphill battle, but he's ready for it. Elise chose betrayal and deceit, while he chose dignity and justice. Outside the window, the last rays of the setting sun faded, and darkness enveloped the small house in a Boston suburb. But in the darkness, Reed sees a glimmer of hope. It was the beginning of a new life, a life free of lies and betrayal. When night fell fully, Reed turned off the lights and walked to the bedroom. 14 years of marriage had ended, but his life went on. Tomorrow, he would face a new challenge, but at least tonight, he could sleep with a strange peace, knowing that the truth was out and justice was coming. This is the end of part 1, but Reed's story is far from over. In the days to come, he will face more challenges, weather more emotional storms, and ultimately find the path to true happiness, or at least the path to peace. The next few days were both agonizing and liberating for Reed. The emptiness of the house was unfamiliar. There was no scent of Elise's perfume, no sound of her bustling in the kitchen, no sound of her laughter. But with it came a strange calm, one that no longer required suspicion or guesswork. On Monday morning, Reed took the day off work to meet with attorney Dana Phillips to officially start divorce proceedings. Based on the evidence you've provided, we have a strong case for a fault-based divorce, Dana said after reviewing Marcus's report and other materials Reed had gathered. I must warn you, however, that it will be a difficult process. Reed nodded, expressionless. I'm ready. Did Elise contact you? Dana asked. She sent a few texts wanting to talk, but I didn't reply. I think all communication should go through you. Dana nodded approvingly. Wise decision. We'll file the divorce petition with the court and then formally notify Elise. She will have time to respond, and then we will move into the discovery phase to gather more evidence. The whole process can take months, if not longer. I have time, Reed said, with a new kind of firmness in his voice. I want to make sure this is all done according to the legal process. After leaving the law office, Reed drove to the power company where he worked. He needs to get his life back to normal, even if normal has changed forever. In the office, his co-workers seemed to notice the difference, but no one asked too many questions. Reed has always been a more private person and is not comfortable sharing personal issues in the workplace. At lunchtime, he was approached by his old friend and colleague Nathan. Is everything okay, man? Nathan asked as they sat down to lunch. You look a bit not the same. Reed hesitated, then decided to be honest. Elise and I broke up. I found out she cheated on me. Nathan's expression changed from surprise to anger to sympathy. Damn it, Reed, I'm sorry. What happened? Reed briefly explains the situation, omitting some of the more painful details. If you need anything at all, let me know, Nathan said sincerely. We're friends, not just co-workers. Thanks, Reed replied, feeling a twinge of warmth. Now I just need to focus on my work and keep myself busy. During the afternoon, Reed's cell phone continued to receive messages from Elise, but he stood by his decision not to reply. He knew that any direct interaction could lead to an emotional outburst, and that was exactly what he wanted to avoid right now. Later that night, Reed returns to his empty home to find a letter sitting on his doorstep. He recognized Elise's handwriting. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to read it. The letter was not long. Reed, I know I hurt you, and I'm deeply sorry for that. But I want you to know that it's not as simple as you think. I'd like us to talk face to face and work this out before the lawyers get involved. We used to love each other. Can't we handle this like adults? Elise. Reed sneered and crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it in the trash. Now she wants to handle it like an adult? After she betrayed him, lied to him, planned to abandon him? He took out his cell phone, flipped to Dana's number, and sent a message. Elise tried to contact me directly. How do I respond? Dana quickly replied, don't respond. All communication should go through us. I will formally inform her of this. Reed felt a wave of relief. It felt good to have a professional on his side, giving him guidance. For the next few days, Reed focused on working and organizing the house. He put away all reminders of his Elise, including their wedding photos and other mementos. Instead of throwing them away, even though that was his first reaction, he put them in a box in the attic. Maybe one day, when the wounds don't hurt so much, he'll decide what to do with them. On Thursday, while Reed was working in his office, he received a call from Dana. Elise's lawyer contacted me today, Dana said. She has hired an attorney named Jeremy Klein. What did he say? Reed asked. He said Elise wants to resolve the matter through mediation to avoid a lengthy court battle. He also mentioned an equitable property division program. What program? Basically, she wants half the value of the house and furniture, plus half the funds in your joint account. In exchange, she's willing to give up any claim to your future income. Reed felt a surge of anger. She cheated on me, and now she wants half the house. This is my parents' land. I know how you feel, Dana said calmly. I have told Mr. Klein that the offer is unacceptable given Elise's affair and decision to leave the marriage. We insist on a full divorce proceeding, including a property division hearing. How did he respond? He said he'd discuss it with Elise, but he warned that things could get complicated if we insisted on going down the fault-based divorce route. Reed frowned. Is this some kind of threat? Maybe, maybe not, Dana replied. But don't worry, This tactic is common in divorce cases. They are trying to test your resolve. My resolve is strong, Reed said firmly. I won't let her get off easy. Good, Dana said. I will continue to move forward with the program. The court has accepted our application, and Elise will receive formal notification next week. After hanging up, Reed felt a pang of concern. He doesn't want an ugly court battle, but he's not going to make it easy for Elise to get everything she wants either. It's not just about the house or the money. It's about justice and righteousness. That night, when Reed returns home, he finds Dominic's car parked in front of his house. He felt a surge of anger, but controlled himself. He calmly made his way to the front door and found Elise standing there, key in hand. "What are you doing here?" Reed asked, his voice icy. Elise turned around, looking both surprised and disturbed. I just came to pick up some clothes. I thought you were working. So you chose to sneak into our house when I wasn't there?" Reed raised an eyebrow. "Very mature, Elise." "It's my house too," Elise argued. "I have the right to take what's mine." "It would be better to arrange it through a lawyer," Reed replied. "Or at least let me know ahead of time." Elise looked like she wanted to argue, but eventually gave up. "Okay, I just need some clothes and my laptop. I'll be leaving soon." Reed stand in the doorway and get out of the way. "Be my guest, but I'll be waiting here to make sure you only take what's yours." Elise walked quickly into the house and headed straight for the bedroom. Reed followed, keeping his distance but not letting her out of sight. "You don't need to do this," Elise grumbled, gathering her clothes as she did so. "I'm not going to steal anything. Like you didn't steal my trust and our marriage?" Reed countered. Elise turned around, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know I hurt you, Reed. I didn't mean to. But with the way things are going, can we at least remain civilized?" "I'm civilized," Reed replied. "I didn't show the video of you and your boyfriend in New York on TV. I didn't tell all our friends how you betrayed me. I am taking this matter through legal channels. I think that's civilized enough." Elise's face turned white. "What video? Are you following me?" Reed realized he'd blurted it out, but he didn't back down. "I have a right to know the truth, Elise. And it turns out that my suspicions were correct." Elise looks both shocked and angry. "It's an invasion of privacy. And your behavior is a violation of the marriage vows," Reed replied calmly. "We're even." Elise quickly gathers up the rest of her things and heads for the front door. "This isn't over, Reed." "Yeah, not yet," Reed agreed. "But it will soon be over." When Elise left, Reed closed the door and took a deep breath. The meeting was tougher than he expected, but he kept his cool and didn't let his emotions get the better of him. The next day, Reed receives another call from Dana. "Elise's lawyer just contacted me claiming you've been spying on her," Dana said, concern in her voice. "Is this true?" Reed explained Marcus' investigation and the evidence he had. "Understand your situation," Dana responded. "I must warn you, however, that in some cases such evidence may not be admissible in a court of law, especially if it was obtained without authorization. However, your reference to email and credit card records is legitimate evidence because these are shared accounts. So they want to use this against us?" Reed asked. "It's just a ploy," Dana reassured him. "They're trying to divert attention away from Elise's affair. But don't worry, we have enough evidence to support our case." Reed felt slightly more relieved, but this new development disturbed him. He needs to be more careful to avoid giving Elise and her lawyer any leverage he can use. That weekend, Reed decided to leave the house for a while. He drove to a small seaside town in Maine where there was a cabin he frequented. Being away from Boston, away from all the pain and drama, was exactly what he needed right now. In the silence of the sea, Reed reflects on his marriage to Elise. How happy and in love they had been. When did it start to go bad? What led to Elise's betrayal? These questions swirled in his mind, but there were no clear answers. Sunday night, Reed returned to Boston feeling more determined and calm than when he left. He has accepted the fact that his marriage is over, and now he just wants to get it over with as soon as possible and move on with his life. On Monday morning, Reed received an email from Dana with a new offer from Elise's side. "My clients are willing to give up any claim to the property if you will. 1. Giving her 60% of the funds in the joint account. 2. Pay her 3 months of temporary alimony until she finds a new job in New York. 3. Waive any right to her future earnings. 4. Agreeing to a no-fault divorce and not mentioning her affair in any legal documents." Reed felt a surge of anger as he read it. It's an obvious attempt to get him to give up his right to use Elise's infidelity as grounds for divorce, while also demanding more money. He immediately replied to Dana, "Not accepted. I will not cover up her betrayal or provide financial support for her new life. We continue to go the route of having a fault-based divorce." Dana replied, "Understood. I'll notify the other side." The next few days became tense. Reed notices an unfamiliar car parked near his house and suspects it may be a private investigator hired on Elise's part. He told Dana about it, and she advised him to remain vigilant, but not to take any action that could be perceived as confrontational or threatening. On Wednesday, when Reed came home from work, he found Nathan waiting at his door. "Hey man," Nathan stepped forward. "I just wanted to see how you were doing. It's been days since I've seen you." Reed invited Nathan inside and poured them both a beer. "Honestly, it's tough," Reed confesses. "Divorce is becoming a bit messy." Nathan nodded in understanding. "I guess Elise doesn't want to just let go." "No, she won't," Reed sighed. "She wants more money and is trying to get me to agree not to mention her affair in the divorce papers." "This is ridiculous," Nathan said angrily. "She betrayed you, and now you want to protect her reputation." "Yeah," Reed agreed. "But I won't budge. It's not just about money. It's about truth and justice." Nathan was silent for a moment, then asked, "Do you think she really loves that guy? Or was it just an impulse?" Reed pondered the question. "I don't know, and I don't care. She made a choice, and now she has to face the consequences." "Well," Nathan nodded. "But be careful. Elise has always been a proud person. If she feels cornered, who knows what she might do?" Reed seriously considered his friend's warning. Nathan is right. Elise has always been proud and stubborn. If she feels threatened, she may take more drastic action. The next day, Reed's fears were validated. Dana called with a sense of urgency in her voice. "Elise's attorney just filed a document claiming that you have a history of emotionally abusive and controlling behavior," Dana said. "They claim this is what led her to seek a relationship outside of marriage." Reed felt a wave of vertigo. "It's a complete lie. I've never abused Elise, physically or emotionally." "I believe you," Dana reassured him. "This is a common tactic to try to shift the focus away from the affair. But we need to take this accusation seriously. Do you have any evidence that your marital relationship is healthy? Mutual friends, therapists, anyone who can vouch for the nature of your relationship?" Reed thought about it. "Our friends can testify to that. And her parents, we've always been close. They know I never abused Elise." "Good," Dana said. "Gather contact information for these people. We may need their testimony. In the meantime, I will prepare a formal response to refute these allegations." After hanging up, Reed felt a surge of anger and betrayal. Not only has Elise betrayed his trust, but now she's trying to tarnish his honor simply to gain an advantage in the divorce. He called Marcus to update him on the latest developments. "This is despicable," Marcus said angrily. "But don't worry, bro. We have actual evidence of her infidelity." "What does she have?" "Some allegations made out of thin air." "I hope the judge sees that," Reed sighed. "They will," Marcus reassured him. "Especially when we show those photos and videos." "Photos and videos," Reed repeated, suddenly having an idea. "Marcus, can you make a copy of all the evidence for me? I want to check something." "Sure, but what were you thinking?" "Just a thought," Reed replied vaguely. "I'll tell you later." After receiving Marcus's file, Reed scrutinized every photo and video clip. He noticed that in one of the videos, Elise and Dominic were in a cafe in New York and they were talking about future plans. "Once the divorce is finalized, we can officially start our lives together," Dominic says in the video. "I've got a place for you at the office." "I'm not sure I'm ready to leave my job in Boston," Elise responded. "I built my reputation there." "Trust me," Dominic said with a confident smile. "In my company, you will have more opportunities. Besides, didn't you say your current boss was always too hard on you?" Elise nodded, but her expression was uncertain. "Yes, but—" "No buts," Dominic interrupted her. "I'll take care of you. You just need to deal with the divorce, and then we can start our new life." The conversation caught Reed's attention. It sounds like Dominic is pressuring Elise to give up her career in Boston, and she doesn't seem entirely sure that's what she wants. Reed goes back to the earlier recordings and finds more snippets of conversations between Dominic and Elise, showing how Dominic manipulates the conversation and how Elise is often hesitant and unsure. It also explains why Elise suddenly made those false abuse allegations, probably Dominic's idea as a ploy to get a more favorable divorce offer. Reed notes these observations and then sends Dana a message requesting a meeting tomorrow to discuss a new strategy. The next day, in Dana's office, Reed shared his findings and thoughts. "I think Dominic is manipulating Elise," he explains. From these recordings, she wasn't sure about leaving Boston or her job, but Dominic kept up the pressure. Dana listens intently, then nods. "That's an interesting angle. If we can prove that Elise was manipulated or coerced into making these decisions, it could affect the judge's view of her allegations." Not only that, Reed continued, "I think we can just fight back. I don't want to continue this ugly fight, but I won't accept these false accusations either." Dana considered for a moment, then made a suggestion. "We could arrange a mediation session so Elise can see the evidence we have. If she realizes that we can prove her allegations are false, she may change her tactics." Reed agreed to the plan. Dana immediately scheduled a mediation meeting with Elise and her attorney. The mediation meeting is scheduled for next Monday. During this time, Reed begins to gather more evidence to refute Elise's allegations. He reached out to their mutual friends for statements of support. He found texts and emails from them over the past few years that showed their relationship was healthy. And he even reached out to Elise's parents, though it was a difficult conversation. Surprisingly, Elise's parents are totally on Reed's side. "We know you never abused Elise," her father, George, said by phone. "We always thought you were a good son-in-law. These allegations must be some kind of misunderstanding. Or maybe it's the influence of her new boyfriend." Elise's mother, Linda, added disappointment in her voice. "Elise told us about him, but we haven't met him yet. We want her to know what she's doing." Reed thanked them for their support, even though the situation saddened him. Not only did Elise betray him, but she hurt others who cared about her. On Monday morning, Reed and Dana met with Elise and her attorney, Jeremy Klein, at a neutral law firm. When Reed walked into the conference room, he realized that Dominic was there, sitting next to Elise. "I don't recall inviting a third party to this meeting," Dana said calmly. "Dominic is here to support me," Elise replied, a hint of defense in her voice. "This is a legal meeting about the marriage between the two of you," Dana pointed out. "Unless he's a legal representative, there's no reason for him to be here." After some debate, Dominic finally agrees to wait outside. Reed noticed that Elise looked both nervous and uneasy, unlike her usual confident persona at work or in social situations. Once the meeting started, Jeremy Klein immediately went into attack mode. "My client has made it clear that she has experienced emotionally abusive and controlling behaviors in her marriage," Klein says. "This was the main reason that led her to seek other relationships. We hope the court will consider these factors." Dana, stay calm. "These are very serious allegations, Mr. Klein. Please specify which of Mr. Reed Connor's actions constitute emotional abuse and control." Klein consulted with Elise and then replied, "Mr. Connor frequently criticized my client's work performance, limited her contact with friends and family, controlled the family finances, and put unreasonable pressure on her. I've never done any of those things." Reed couldn't help himself. Dana patted his hand soothingly before continuing. "These allegations are completely false, and we are prepared to provide plenty of evidence to prove it. This includes testimony from mutual friends of Elise and Reed, testimony from Elise's parents, and records of their correspondence over the years that show their relationship was healthy and full of respect." She opened a folder and began listing the evidence. "In addition," Dana continued, "we have evidence that Elise's extramarital relationship has been going on for at least 3 months and began after she met Mr. Dominic Green. We have emails, text messages, photos, and video evidence to prove it." Elise's face turns white, but Klein continues to hold his attack stance. "Even if there was an extramarital relationship, this does not negate the emotional damage that Mr. Connor's actions caused my client." "Let's see the evidence," Dana said calmly, before pulling a flash drive from her bag. "Here's Marcus Wilson's full investigative report, including photos and video of Elise and Dominic taken in New York." She pushed some pictures into the center of the table. These photos show Elise and Dominic in intimate moments at upscale restaurants, hotels, and other venues. Based on the timestamps, the photos were taken on the night Elise claimed to be working overtime. Dana then shows a video showing Dominic talking about Elise's plans to move to New York to work with him and Elise's indecision. This recording clearly shows that Mr. Green was pressuring Elise to give up her career in Boston, and she was hesitant to do so, Dana notes. If there was any manipulation, it looks like it came from Mr. Green, not my client. Elise looks shocked and confused, but Klein tries to change the subject. Whatever Mr. Green said, it had nothing to do with Mr. Connor's conduct toward my client. Directly related, Dana countered. If Elise was manipulated or coerced into making these false allegations, it has a direct bearing on her credibility and the validity of these allegations. Over the next few hours, lawyers on both sides argued vigorously, presenting evidence and counter-evidence. Throughout the process, Reed notices that Elise looks increasingly uncomfortable, especially when the evidence demonstrates her affair and Dominic's manipulative behavior. Eventually, Klein asked for a break to talk privately with Elise. When they returned, Klein's attitude had changed significantly. After reviewing the evidence provided by both sides, my client is willing to withdraw his previous allegations, Klein declared. We hope to reach a fair settlement and avoid further court battles. Dana looked to Reed, who nodded slightly. We're willing to discuss solutions, Dana responded, but only if Elise officially admits to the affair and retracts all the false allegations against Reed. After another round of negotiations, the parties eventually reached a deal. Elise would give up any claim to the house, admit to the affair, and withdraw all allegations of abuse. In exchange, Reed agreed to give her 40% of the funds in the joint account and allow her to keep her personal belongings and some of the furniture she had purchased together. When the terms of the agreement were finalized, Reed felt a strange sense of relief. This fight was finally coming to an end, and he could move on with his life. The day the final agreement was signed, Reed and Dana met Elise and Klein at the courthouse. Surprisingly, Dominic didn't show up. After signing the papers, Elise walks over to Reed while Klein and Dana talk. Reed, She opened her mouth, her voice trembling. Save it, Reed interrupted her coldly. Your apologies mean nothing to me. Elise's face turns white, visibly shocked by Reed's indifference. I'm just saying those abuse allegations were Dominic's idea, and I shouldn't have agreed to them. There are a lot of things you shouldn't be doing, Reed replied sharply. But you did it all. Now you must face the consequences. I broke up with Dominic, Elise whispered. When those recordings were played, I saw his true colors. Reed smiled sarcastically. What a shame. It seems you've lost everything. Your marriage, your new boyfriend, your reputation. At least you have a job. He paused. Oh wait, your professional reputation suffered after your employer found out you were having an affair under the false pretext of a business trip, didn't it? Elise's eyes filled with tears, but Reed didn't waver. He felt a pang of satisfaction inside. This was the moment of vengeance he'd been waiting for, to watch the betrayer lose everything, just as she'd made him lose it. You used to have it all, Elise. A loving husband, a successful career, and a wonderful home. You threw it all away for a whim. I hope the lesson was worth it. Reed didn't wait for her to respond and turned to leave, his back straight and firm. As they left the courthouse, Reed felt a strange sense of completeness. This nightmare was finally over, and he could start a new life. He won, not just legally, but morally. He maintains his dignity and sticks to the truth, and Elise finally admits her mistake. 6 months later, Reed sits on the terrace of the house he's kept and looks out over the well-manicured garden. He decides not to sell the house, a symbol of his victory, proof of his triumph over Elise in court. In addition, the land was originally owned by his parents and has deep family significance. His cell phone rang, and it was a text from Marcus. Hey, good news. I heard your ex-wife finally left Boston. Obviously not in a good place in the company. Clients are aware of her reputation and have been asking for a replacement. Reed smiled and replied, Justice is late, but not absent. A drink tonight to celebrate. Marcus quickly replied, Of course, Nathan will be there. See you at the usual place at 7. Reed put down his cell phone and let out a satisfied breath. His plan for revenge works perfectly. Elise loses everything. Her marriage, her reputation with the company, her relationship with Dominic, her social circle in Boston, and ultimately, even the job she was so proud of. And now she had to leave the city and start over like a fugitive. Meanwhile, his life was getting better. The court ruling gave him a generous division of his property. He kept his house and most of his assets, and he's taken his career to the next level. He just got a promotion last week. What's more, he's recently met a woman named Claire, who is smart, genuine, and very different from Elise. On the day the court battle ended, Reed rejected Elise's apology and gave her no chance to reconcile. It was a promise he made to himself, not only to win a legal victory, but to make sure the betrayer paid the price he deserved. In hindsight, it was worth every step. As he basked in the afterglow of the setting sun, Reed felt utterly satisfied. He wasn't the kind of weakling who would forgive betrayal. He stood firm on his principles and gave the betrayer what he deserved. And on the other side of town, Elise stood alone in her small apartment, surrounded by humble cardboard boxes. Tomorrow she would leave Boston for a small city where no one knew her and start at the bottom of a small company of unknown names. There were no tears in her eyes, only regret and remorse. Her betrayal and lies had destroyed everything she had so carefully constructed, and now she had to live with that bitter lesson. That's the price of betrayal: losing everything, starting over, carrying a stain that can never be washed away. And for those contemplating infidelity, Elise's story will always serve as a warning. Choose betrayal and be prepared to suffer the consequences of total collapse. Reed's vengeance was not achieved through violence or lawlessness, but through an unwavering pursuit of truth and justice. He didn't compromise, he didn't go soft, he didn't forgive, because some betrayals are not worth forgiving. As Reed prepares to head out the door to meet his friends, he looks at himself in the mirror, determined eyes, confident smile. This is a man who has experienced betrayal without being crushed, a man who has stood on the ruins to rebuild and make his betrayer pay. He felt complete victory and relief. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.